You're listening to Psychology's Outer Limits with your host, Professor of Psychology, Erick R. Williams.
Good evening, good afternoon, and everything in between. Welcome to Psychology's Outer Limits. I am your host, Professor Erick Williams, and we are broadcasting via the InceptionRadioNetwork.com. I hope everyone's having a good weekend. We got a lot of rain here on the East Coast. First with, the remnants of Bill, and then yesterday we got almost 3 inches of rain. That was pretty amazing. Let's see. Let's go through all the ways you can communicate with us. First, if you're online, if you're listening on your notebook or desktop or whatever, you can go to the chat room. Just click on chat, and it'll let you log in as a guest, or you can log in via Twitter, or it just gives you a bunch of choices and lets you log in. Okay. We also have our apps. We have our iOS app, and we have our Android app if you want to listen that way. The apps seem to work well. A lot of my students tell me that they're using the app to listen to me, which tells you something about the future of radio. It's going online because the younger people listen to radio with devices as opposed to the old-fashioned radios. Then you can call us at 888-919-2355. That's 888-919-2355. We have our Facebook page, Psychology's Outer Limits. Twitter, you can reach at Erick Psychology, and my name is spelled E-R-I-C-K, so it's at Erick Psychology, or at I_R_N for Inception Radio Network. And we have a new email address because we all wanted to be on the same network. So the new email address is busybrainradio@gmail.com. busybrainradio@gmail.com, because we all have busy brains. So I thought that'd be a great one. And now stay tuned after this show. At 9 o'clock, we have more live radio, paying radio. And MJ and Ken will have on guests Adrian, I believe, Lee, and Lorna Hunter, and they will be discussing their paranormal research as well as the upcoming Minnesota Paracon. So again, this is at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. So stay tuned for more great live radio. And next week, have a bit of a surprise, or I don't know if it's a surprise. It's interesting. We're going to have a guest next week, so the show is going to go a little longer. It's going to go about an hour and a half. And our guest is going to be Anthony Cummins, who currently resides in Italy. And Anthony is a retired pirate. And I mean pirate like, out on the high seas and doing things pirates do. Very out of the ordinary. He has a lot of stories to tell. He's worked for companies. He's worked for bad guys that he said he can't talk about if he wants to continue to be alive. He's worked for the CIA. So I'm looking forward to his stories. And he also said that he has a couple stories about UFOs crashing into the ocean. So I think that'll be particularly interesting. So next week we're going to be on from 7 o'clock to 8:30. We'll do a half hour of psych stuff. And then we'll spend an hour with, I don't know if it's Captain Cummins or what, but I'll find out between now and then. And then tonight, if someone's brave enough to call in, we have our contest. I'm going to try to have one every week, and I'll explain that in a bit. But this week's contest is for a portable Bluetooth speaker. I have a sort of a hobby with all of these hot deals sites where people post deals, and I get stuff anywhere from free to $1, and I got a whole box of stuff, so I can take things out of there and we can do contests. So all you got to do is call in anytime during the show at 888-919-2355. And last week we talked about the world's most prominent disorder, which is depression. I'm trying to make this really easy. So the answer to the question is depression. So call in anytime during the show, and MJ will get you on, and we will get the prize shipped out to you. I mean, how much easier can it get? You dial a number and you get a free thing. That's pretty good. This week's disorder is OCD. I think someone put sociopaths on Facebook, and we are going to do sociopaths. That's going to take a little more work on my part. That's a very complicated disorder, and so is OCD. But I do want to cover OCD. We have our usual review of research during the week. And to start the show, and I'm going to keep track of the chat room here because I want to see what you guys have to say. I was thinking about pet peeves this week. What are your pet peeves? Do they have to do with things people do around the house? Is it someone not leaving the toilet seat up or down? Mine has always been people that won't use turn signals. I mean, you get to a four-way intersection and you don't know what to do because it seems like if someone doesn't have their turn signals on, they're going to go straight. But, a high percentage of the time, they'll turn left or right. They'll make rapid lane changes. Drives me nuts. MJ hates that one too. Good. So I'm curious what your pet peeves are. And actually, the driving one is a little worrisome. I forget how I came across this, but if you're in a rear end accident, you're automatically at fault if you're the person that's in the back. If it's your bumper that hits the person in front of you's rear bumper, you're automatically at fault. And then I found out that insurance companies are now accepting dash cams as evidence, because you know how someone could cut you off and basically take out the front end of your car, but when the police gets there, they don't know what happened. For a review for the dash cam I bought, this guy told a great story. He was sitting at a traffic light, and there was a driver in front of him, and she was in a really big SUV, like one of those urban assault vehicle types, and she was going to make a right turn on red. So she gets about halfway out on the intersection, and for some reason changes her mind. So she puts that big, gigantic vehicle from hell into reverse and comes back into the lane, and it just smashes into this guy's front end. Well, when the police get there, she tells him that she was just sitting there waiting for the light, and he pulled forward and hit her tail. He was really astounded, but he just let her tell his story, and then he told the policeman his story, and then the policeman said, well, lacking any evidence, there's not much I can do. And that's when he says, oh, I have a dash cam. And he says he wished he'd had a picture of that lady had that, I'm gonna use a bad word, that oh shit look on her face. So she got tickets for the bad driving, and she got one for lying to an officer. But anyway, you just put it up on your windshield, and it just keeps looping. I have mine set to do 10-minute loops, and God, you can get days worth of loops on there. And if you're in, if it senses, it has a G-force sensor. If it senses something's hit your car, it'll lock that loop so it can't be written over. But it's also just fun for when you see really crazy driving. Of course, once you buy one of these like I did, you don't see crazy driving anymore. But when I do, I'm going to put some of it up on YouTube because I think that would be fun. Let's see. Jim Bob. Problem I have is when I talk to people and ask them about turn signals, they think turn signals are optional. Yeah, they do. I mean, I took driver's ed a long time ago in the 74. This is back when you still had to learn to put your arms out, but I think these days you have to use the actual ones. Let's see, American Road Warrior, people believing in chemtrails and that aliens make crop circles. That's one of his pet peeves. So anyway, there's a few pet peeves. They're probably, I don't know if there's any research on pet peeves. It's probably something I should look up. Okay, let's take a look at what I found this week. First of all, As a matter of fact, she's in the chat room, Elizabeth Adkins Huseman. Her favorite thing is llamas. That's why there's a picture of a llama. And she is also my future wife. I wonder if choking when I said that means something. Okay, anyway, she sent me an article I thought it was neat. So this will let us talk about sociopaths a little bit. And just really, really briefly, a sociopath is a person that has absolutely no moral compass. Nothing is wrong. They don't feel guilt. They have no empathy. They just do what they want, and they don't feel bad about it. But what I got was this list of professions that have the most amount of psychopathy and the least amount of psychopathy. So first, let's go through this list of people that have the highest amount of psychopathy, okay? And maybe you're one of them. I don't know. Let's see. Number one is CEO. I think to be a CEO, you do have to have a little bit of crazy in you. Number two is lawyer. Number three is media, TV/radio. Okay, well, I guess MJ and I and a few others have to own up to that one. But I think they're talking about the really big people. Number four is salesperson. Number five is surgeon. That one really surprised me. Number six is a journalist. That one did not surprise me. Number seven is police officer. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I meet a lot of police officers that are really nice, and then I run across some that I think went into the field just so they could push people around. Number eight, this one might surprise you. Remember, we're talking about the 10 professions out of thousands most likely to have a sociopath. Number eight is a clergy person. Isn't that interesting? Number nine is a chef. That came out of nowhere. And number 10 is civil servant. And anyone who's ever had to call motor vehicles or talk to the IRS probably doesn't have any problem believing that. All right, now let's switch over to the nice list. These are people least likely to have to be sociopaths. These days we call it antisocial personality disorder. But anyway, here's our list of professions that have the least amount of psychopathy. Care aide is number one. Number two is nurse. Number three is therapist. Well, that puts me on both lists. I'm going to go with the therapist one because I like being a good guy. Number four is a craftsperson. Number five is a beautician/stylist. Well, they're often kind of therapists too, aren't they? Because they like to chat. Number six is charity worker. Number seven is teacher. Number eight is creative artist. Number nine is doctor. But then a subset of doctors, surgeons, are psychopaths. Interesting. And number 10 is accountant. So that's our list of professions with the least and most number of psychopaths. And I thought that was pretty interesting. What else was going on this week? What is okay, a little bit of the paranormal here. And this was a very short article, and I found it kind of interesting. What is the best kind of evidence of some sort of afterlife? And I think we're all interested in this. First of all, especially in our society, Western society, we are terrified of death. And we go through a lot of trouble to avoid talking about death. And when we even make funerals seem like the person's still alive. I mean, my gosh, the caskets I see look nicer than my bed. So, we treat dead people like they're still alive. But what he's exploring is, what could be the best kind of evidence. And he says, I'm not a historian, neither am I an anthropologist, but I assume that even today, more people in the world believe in some kind of afterlife. And I believe there are statistics to back that up. But, how could we know? Then it goes on to say, being more scientifically inclined and not being raised in a religious family, I'm not taking the claims brought by them at face value. So, he's acting like a scientist. He wants evidence. He says, well, there's mediumship. and various related phenomena like automatic writing. Like I said, be like a Ouija board. But he points out that he has no personal experience with that. And seances doesn't turn him on. And they don't do much for me either, because again, they're just not scientific enough. There is a lot of research done on near-death experiences, and I show a short video in class on near-death experience. You can kind of induce them. You know those G-force things they spin astronauts in until they pass out? Well, right before they go into what they call, I think, gravity lock, they seem to experience what people experience right before death, a bright, narrowing light. So that could simply be what the brain does when it's turning off. But still, people have remarkable near-death experience stories to tell. And then here's one I really hadn't heard of before, but maybe you folks have. Deathbed visions. He doesn't think that there's an acronym for that. What would that be? DBVs? I don't know. But anyway, people that are talking about visions, I suppose, as they die. He goes on in the article, anyway, a new term for this was coined by Raymond Moody, the famous author of Life After Life, and he called them shared NDEs. A shared NDE is when a non-dying person is experiencing the passing away of another one close to him, physically or emotionally. These are interesting in that they happen not to people who are dying themselves, that is, their bodies are not malfunctioning. So that's pretty interesting. And he points out that CNN recently did an article about this, and it's called Beyond Goodbye. So you could go to CNN and search on Beyond Goodbye. And then the last thing he talks about is EVP. And I'm sure that almost anyone that listens to Inception Radio network is familiar with EVPs. But, what do you think? What would be convincing evidence for you of an afterlife? I mean, I think a lot of us believe in afterlives just based on faith. But, what about some evidence? I think that would be pretty interesting. Let's see, what's going on here in the chat room? Okay, someone needs to call in and pick up your phone, dial the numbers, and win this this Bluetooth speaker. The number is 888-919-2355. Okay, so just call in, and you don't have to stay on long if you're shy, just long enough to say hi and say the word depression, and then I'll hand you back to MJ and he'll get your mailing address. Okay, so hopefully somebody will call in. All right, what else is going on here? Alzheimer's. And I teach a class at least once a semester on Alzheimer's, which is a kind of dementia. And one of the things that the research is really starting to tell us about Alzheimer's is that if we use our brain in novel ways, we may avoid Alzheimer's. It's rare for a person with a graduate degree to have Alzheimer's. In the famous nun study, where I think I talked about this before, where they looked at the brains of nuns who had taught their whole lives. These were very healthy-looking brains of, women who had taught their whole life. But anyway, a new study suggests a relatively easy way to gauge whether people are more likely to wind up with an Alzheimer's diagnosis as far as 18 years down the road. And this is by giving them memory and thinking tests. And they did this with 2,000 people at an average age of 73 who did not yet have an Alzheimer's diagnosis. And the predictive variable were low scores on the mental skills test. But I think this goes back to my argument that if you use your brain, if you surf the net and read new things and you play games and you use your brain, then you're not going to score low on these tests to begin with. So this is almost like a correlation. There really isn't a direct causative effect between the two variables. There's something that's in between. I'll keep a better eye over here on this other computer. But anyway, I do believe that your brain is a use it or lose it proposition. And if you use your brain if you do things like like surfing the net, you end up in all sorts of weird places, and your brain has to work harder because it's not familiar with the material. Or if you play games like Scrabble, there's mounting evidence that that keeps the brain healthy. It's in a way, it's like muscle tissue. If you exercise, then you'll have a healthy body, and if you don't, then then you won't. So, but the research is pretty good, and I'm almost wondering if there's like this window, like you really have to do a lot of this before you're 30, because a lot of people, that's about the time they finish grad school. So keep using your brain. And do we have a caller? Hello?
Caller, can you please turn off your radio in the background? Caller?
Yeah, I'm hearing me.
Caller, can you please turn your radio off in the background? There you go.
Hello, caller.
There you go. Hi. This is
How are you? What's your name?
JV. This is Jim Bob.
Hey, Jim Bob. How are you? Well,
I just thought I'd call in and say hi. You invited me to call a long time ago.
So Jim Bob,
yeah.
Do you really go by Jim Bob?
Well, actually, my name is just Jim, but I put Jim Bob on there because there's so many Jim Bobs Jims on Facebook.
Well, that's true. My father's name was Jim. It's a planet full of Jims, at least the northern half.
Yeah.
So, Jim, what is the answer? What is the answer to the quiz question?
The answer to the quiz question is depression.
Ah, we have a winner. This is great. All righty.
Somebody else lost out because they're...
I'm sorry?
Go
No, go ahead. You were saying something.
Somebody else lost out because they apparently didn't get the... And I think the voicemail picked up on me, and I didn't leave a message, so...
Okay, that's not a problem. But I'm glad we have a winner. Just out of curiosity, were you on either of our sociopath lists?
I think I was.
On the list where you were. Were you on? Is your profession likely or not likely to have sociopaths?
I'm on the caregiver. I'm a caregiver.
Oh, okay. You're a good guy.
I'm one of the good guys. I've worked
good.
under some sociopaths, and I work as a psychiatric assistant.
Oh, you do?
I have done so for been 19 years as a...
That job has a very high burnout rate. I'm surprised you're still doing it after that many years.
Well, that's because I've had a chance to kill a few patients once in a while, And
well, that helps.
It evens out. Yeah.
It evens out. If you can take one out once in a while.
Of course. Yeah.
No, I never killed a patient, but I got injured a lot in hospitals. I had a thumb crushed. I was putting a patient into a seclusion room, and the doors were metal.
Yeah.
And I had my hand on the door frame, and he slammed the door and crushed my thumb.
Ow.
And while I was trying to restrain a patient, he got a heel and broke 2 ribs. So, but still, it's great work. I'm glad you're doing it. It's just it takes a special kind of person to do that work, and my gosh, to do it that long.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm not working in security rooms, and I'm not working with really psychotic patients anymore. So.
Oh, I was working with psychotic children, 7 to 17.
That was my first 9 years of my career.
Oh, well, that's really cool. Well, it's great to have a fellow. It's great to have a fellow psych person on the line. I wonder if we were having problems with people calling in. Christy said I tried calling, says to leave a message in the voicemail. Well, maybe that's because someone's already on the line. All righty.
It happened to me, too.
Okay. Well, I'll let the producers figure that out. And I've never actually done a prize or had a caller. So, NJ, do you have a way to get his mailing address without him doing it over the air? Or shall I have, you know, okay. Okay. He says he's good on your address.
Yeah, he's got me up on Facebook. He knows me.
Okay. I will mail your Bluetooth thingy out tomorrow.
Well, that's fantastic.
Then you can call back and tell us what you think of it. Well, thank you so much. And you're the first person to ever call in on this show. 10 years from now, when this show's really famous and I'm worth billions, you can say I was the first caller to ever call in on that show.
Yeah.
And I won a prize. So
yeah.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you for calling in. I hope you have a good rest of the evening.
All right. I'm going to stay here and listen to your show. So
okay.
All right.
Stay in the chat room. Take care, Bob. Jim. Bye.
Bye.
Well, good. We finally got a caller. Somewhat historic here on our fourth show, and we'll do this every week until I run out of gadgets to give away. I'll do whatever I can to get people to call in. It's fun. You saw how easy that was. You called in, chat a little bit. I think before we go into another topic, let's see, we'll do a couple more short articles, and then we'll talk about OCD. And you're welcome to call in if you want to talk about OCD. Maybe you know someone, maybe you haven't. But why don't we take a little break here, and when we get back, we will continue with a few more topics and then end the OCD. See you in a moment.
Hello, Inception Radio Network listeners. Did you miss a show? Well, guess what? You can check us out on YouTube. Go to YouTube and search Inception Radio Network to listen to the latest archives of all the shows on IRN. Another way to listen to us anywhere, anytime. For IRN, this is MJ. And oh yeah, right. Remember to subscribe too. Hit the subscribe button. Hello, IRN listeners. This is MJ saying hello and sharing an awesome secret I discovered. It's called DreamNuage.com. Fresh, raw, organic ingredients are used to create all their products. They are made in very small batches to ensure quality and freshness. Handmade in the USA, each product is created with care and with the finest organic ingredients. There are no preservatives, dyes, or chemicals in any product. Stop by Dream Nuage and relax. That's DreamNuage.com. Simple, raw, organic.
Hello, everyone. Lorian Fenton here, host of the California MUFON radio show, asking if you'd like special access to exclusive and amazing information about UFOs, the paranormal, and all things unexplained. If you're nodding yes, then join IRN's Insider Club. As an Insider Club member, you'll get an all-access pass to premier Inception Radio Network content for only $4.99 a month. This includes live UFO and paranormal conferences, live streaming UFO skywatches, exclusive IRN radio and TV productions, and of course, paying radio with MJ and Ken Storch. So don't wait any longer. Visit InceptionRadioNetwork.com and click on Member Login to join IRN's Insider Club and get your VIP access today.
Do you have a smartphone? If so, Inception Radio Network is the best app for you. Available on iTunes, Android, Samsung, and most other app stores. Just search Inception Radio Network. With the app you can listen live, check out podcasts of recent and past shows, view our videos, see what shows are coming up, who the guests are, and, via the chat room, send live questions to those guests. You know it makes sense. Check your app store now. Inception Radio Network. I'll see you there. Are you a fan of Inception Radio Network? Do you reckon it's the best alternative talk radio station on the planet? Well, if you do, head to facebook.com/Inception Radio Network and like the page. Tell your friends, spread the word, and keep listening to the best.
Don't have a computer? Is your internet connection down? Don't worry. Use your trusty cell phone or landline and call into our listen line at 401-283-6700 to listen to the Inception Radio Network 24/7. Again, that call-in number is 401-283-6700. For the Inception Radio Network, I am MJ. You're locked into Inception Radio Network, Superior, Wisconsin.
And welcome back, folks. I hope you had a good break while you're waiting for us. Got something to drink or eat, or went to the bathroom. Maybe even got an adult beverage. And we have with us Christy. Christy was in the chat room and had tried to call in earlier, and this time we have her. How you doing, Christy?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great. We've had a very nice weather, and well, we've had a lot of rain, but I like weather. But we've had kind of a very nice day here in Maryland. Where are you located? What state are you in?
I'm in Glen Burnie, Maryland.
You're in Maryland?
Yep, I'm in Glen Burnie, Maryland.
Glen Burnie. Oh my gosh! Well, I'm in Frederick, and sort of in the middle of Frederick County. You're probably all
I see it.
All of an hour away, right?
Yep, not too far, about 45 minutes to an hour. Yep, not too far at all.
Oh, what a coincidence. That's really great. Well, during the break, Christy was sharing, I think she talked a little bit about on the chat room about a fear of mirrors, and we would call that a phobia. And do you want to just explain to folks a little bit about how you feel about mirrors, Christy?
Like, it makes me think like there's something on the other side looking at me, or something can come through like it's a gateway. So if I got a mirror from like a yard sale for free, and I haven't hung it yet, but it's sitting backwards to where I can't see the mirror part against my wall, because I don't like the mirrors to face me. Like, I have one on the back door of my bedroom door, but I keep a robe over it. So that way I can't see in the mirror and nothing can see me from the mirror. I've never seen anything in the mirror, but I don't want to see anything in the mirror.
You know, phobias are generally learned. Do you recall an incident when you were younger where something, or a movie? I mean, I remember the movies sometimes, there would be bad things in the mirrors. Was there something that triggered this?
Well, I do watch a lot of scary movies, but I remember one time when I was a kid, I was up in Baltimore City with my cousin, and she had her friends over, and they wanted to do the Bloody Mary. And I knew I didn't want to do it. So, and after I did that, it just freaked me out. I don't know. I won't get near them. I won't touch them. Nothing happened, but I just won't get near them. I won't go around them. I don't want them looking at me.
I'm not familiar with that. Bloody Mary?
It's like you sit down. Yeah, like you go into like a room and the mirror is there, and you say like Bloody Mary like 3 times. Mm-hmm. And then she's supposed to come out, or like you'll see the red dot, or she'll be standing behind you to like kill you. It was like a childhood thing. They have the Bloody Mary, the Black Aggie, just stuff like that. Little things I think kids make up to scare the other kids. Well, it worked for me because I'm 37 and I'm still scared of mirrors.
God. So people actually sit down in front of a mirror believing that there's some chance that some crazy woman's going to come out and kill them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like a Ouija board kind of thing,
That strikes me as a fun game.
Oh, no, it's not. It's not. Like, it's like, basically, how they have the dares and the double dares. I'll say, a double dog dare you to go in there and do it. And me, I'll go in with somebody, but I wasn't going in by myself because I'm an unlucky person. Like, so if this ever worked, it would work while I was in there. So I was like, no, I'm not going in by myself. I'll go in with somebody else. So at least I can push them forward and run to get away from it. So that way it doesn't get me.
Are you okay with the mirror if someone is standing beside you? Does that help?
Well, I never stood into a mirror with somebody. I just prefer not to look at them. I prefer not to see them.
What about
if I
the
walk
giant
past
ones?
it and like the
giant
ones, like you're talking about, like on a wall.
Yeah, like if you're
in like a store. Yeah.
Yeah, let's say you're at Penny's and you walk by one of these gigantic mirrors. You just not look in it.
I wouldn't walk past it. I wouldn't go into the mirror section and say,
okay.
let me look at, like that wouldn't be the place where I want to shop. Like I said, when I was up there because I found a rocking chair where there was a whole bunch of stuff on the side of the road, and I seen the mirror and I pick it up and I put it backwards. And so that way I don't, I couldn't tell you whether it's cracked or whether it's not because I don't look at that side. My old man, when I come home, hey, look, honey, I found a mirror. And he'll be like, you bought a mirror? And it sits right. I'm looking at it. It's sitting backwards up against my wall, just so it's not facing me.
I don't turn them around.
Yeah, I turn them around so I don't have to see it. Somebody else might want to look at themselves, but I won't turn it around and look. If the lights are out, I won't go near a mirror. I won't. So,
this phobia isn't so severe that it'd be worthwhile to see a therapist or anything. You're able to work around it.
Oh, no. Yeah, I just turn them around. My biggest fear is heights. Like, I don't go up high. We went to the down in Virginia, and they have we went to the Air Museum, the Air and Space Museum, and they have the little thing that you go in the elevator and come out. Oh, yeah, I was crying. I was crying at the top.
I'm sorry you were crying. That's terrible.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, I don't do
common one. It's
I don't.
Common. There's a form of acrophobia where a person doesn't need to be like out on a balcony. If they just know that they're on the 100th floor of something, they have to go down to the first floor, even if there's no windows. Just knowing that they're up high. That's a more severe form.
Well, I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay with it, like, until I go up and see, like, we went to the baseball game, and we were all the way up. And when you're in Camden Yards, you can't see how far up you are. So when I walked out of, like, the stairway, and I was like, oh, my God. Like, I was in the bathroom crying. The usher had to walk me up the steps while I had my hand over my eyes to sit me down. And I just looked straight ahead the whole time. I didn't even see the whole I didn't see any of the baseball game because I'm not looking down. It just makes me feel like, okay, I'm going to go over, or it's going to come down.
Well, what about,
I like to stay on the ground.
What about rides at a carnival?
Oh, no. I have a 9-year-old, and he wanted to get on the Ferris wheel. So
I'm pretty afraid of those two.
Yeah, so me and my boyfriend and him, we get on the Ferris wheel. This is the kids' Ferris wheel. They're like frog one that goes around at Ocean City.
Right.
So I'm sitting there with my eyes closed, with my hand over my face. Like, it is, let me know when I'm back down on the ground. And it was, not even 10 feet up in the air. Like, I won't sleep on top of a bunk bed. Like, I don't know. I don't mess with the heights at all. I like to be
no
close
heights
to the
and
ground.
No mirrors.
Yeah, no. Oh,
that's
yeah.
Okay. Oh, sounds
so
like
I got
great.
a little weird of both worlds.
Oh, well, everybody does. I don't think I've ever talked to someone that didn't, have a phobia. When we talk about phobias in class, I ask my students, does anyone not have a phobia? And once in a while, one person will raise their hand, but it seems like everybody has at least one. Mine is probably deep water because I don't swim well. So if I'm walking by deep water, my stomach drops. But we'll have to do a show on phobias because I bet we'll get a lot of people call in. So, well, we're going to move on to we're going to move on to OCD. I thank you so much for calling in, and please do call again.
I sure will.
We'll have another contest next week, and it was nice to meet you, and it's always nice to see you in the chat room.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Take care, Christy. Bye-bye.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Oh my gosh, 2 callers in one evening. This is wonderful. I can I could see easily if you had a lot of callers how you could do. I wonder how I mean, I love radio. I listen to a British radio station a lot, LBC, and they have people that do 5-hour talk shows that people call in. So, you know, they have that interaction. When you do a show like this, because I don't have a partner and I generally don't have guests, I have to, you know, I get a little paranoid. I'm not going to have enough material, or I'm going to blank out too often when I'm trying to look things up. But let's talk about OCD here for a moment. This is. First, let's start with what OCD is not. Okay, OCD is not just someone who's neat. You know, a lot of times people will say, "Oh, I'm OCD. I keep my desk neat or whatever." That's just being particular or being neat. People that have OCD suffer. I mean, they really suffer. It is an awful, awful disorder, and it's you know, it's. Neatness could be their thing. It could be one half of it, but you know, you got to think about the name: obsessive-compulsive disorder. And you think of a dog chasing its tail. First, we have obsessive thoughts, and a very common OCD is contamination. So the person starts thinking, "My hands have germs on them," and the thoughts are intrusive. They can't control them, and the thoughts get stronger and stronger. And then they have to go wash their hands. Okay, now that's the compulsive part. So the obsessive part is thinking. It's cognitive. And the compulsive part is behavioral. And the compulsive part, or in this case, the hand washing, temporarily eases the anxious thoughts, because OCD is technically an anxiety disorder. So, you know, when we look at the diagnostic criteria, we see presence of obsessions, compulsions, or both, recurrent and persistent thoughts, urges, or impulses that are experienced at some time during the disturbance as intrusive and unwanted and causes anxiety. And number two, the individual's attempts to ignore or suppress such thoughts, urges, or whatever they don't work. Okay, that's our obsessive part. And our compulsive part is repetitive behaviors, such as hand washing or putting things in order or checking or mental acts. And then again, the behavior is, you know, the person does not feel like they have any control. They feel like they must do this. And then they throw in some caveats. They always do. The disturbance is not better explained by another mental disorder. The OCD symptoms are not attributable to, for example, taking a drug. The obsessions or compulsions have to be time-consuming. They have to take more than 1 hour per day, but that would be a pretty mild case. I do have a couple case histories that I want to share with you, just to show you how bad they can be. Let's see here. Severe case. I have a couple here. Now, this patient was, I think he was 30 years old. Let me scroll down here. Okay, 30-year-old man, severe OCD with obsessive thinking and ruminating thoughts and repeatedly checking behavior. Now, checking behavior means checking, did I lock the door? Did I turn the oven off? They have to check something. And in his case, the checking behavior left him almost unable to leave the house or fulfill a task. And the OCD started when he was 7 or 8. So at the time this was written, he had been suffering with this for 22 years. And, you know, as an example of the checking, a person might lock their door, and then as they're walking to the car, they start thinking, did I lock the door? I'll go back and check. And they go back and they lock the door again. You know, they check. And as they walk back to the car, they think, well, what if when I turned the key back to pull it out, I went too far and I unlocked the door? Okay, well, you can see how this can get to be a terrible cycle. And there are people who have days where they simply give up and they don't go to work. They don't leave their house because they can't get past the checking. And another case history a woman had to have all of her toiletries and stuff neatly lined up on the behind the sink, between the sink and the mirror. Sorry, Christy. And as she would leave the house, she would wonder if something wasn't quite in order. So she had to go back and check it. And another OCD behavior she had was that she had to as she walked along, she had to touch the top of anything she could reach. So she might go back to the bathroom, see that all the toiletries are lined up precisely, get to the front door, and then wonder if she touched the top of the bathroom door on her way out. So she would go back and do that. And in her case history, she noted that there were times that she simply would give up and stay home that day. And then getting back to our other patient, he has to check the water taps are not dripping, make sure that things are empty, make sure that he's always put away everything he should, make sure he has turned things off, closed windows, checked pockets, counting money. I mean, this is really severe. He doesn't have one or two things he's keyed in on. He has to check everything. And when he takes a shower, it takes him a very long time because he has to get his clean clothes and check them at least 5 times before he can take them into the shower. It takes 5 times before he believes that he has clean clothes. Then he has to shower in a certain sequence. And if he gets out of sequence, he has to start the shower over again. And then when he's out of the shower, he has to dry himself in a certain sequence. And again, if he gets interrupted or thinks he missed an area, he starts all over again. That can cause a shower for him to take several hours. So you can imagine, how out of control these OCDs patients can get. And a lot of them do end up housebound. They just simply can't leave the house because they're never quite sure that they finished checking something. Or in the case of people that have contamination, their behavior might be noted at work. And they might be seen as odd or unusual because they're constantly, in one case history, this guy was just constantly cleaning his desk, and then he would clean his chair, and then he'd sit down and work for a few minutes, and then he would do the whole thing over again. He eventually lost his job over the rather bizarre behavior. I think I have a list here of some famous cases. Let me see if this is that list. Nope. I have a list here somewhere. I'm sorry that I didn't have it a little more handy. Severe OCD. 10 famous OCD case histories. Okay, here we go. Some of these you probably knew. Nikola Tesla. Now, first of all, if you've read anything about him, and he certainly plays a role in the paranormal world, so I'm sure a lot of you do. The guy was a genius, and he had an eidetic memory, which was more commonly called a photographic memory. He basically couldn't forget anything. He would design the most complicated devices and never write anything down because he was unable to forget the order. And if you've ever fooled around with electronics, that's pretty hard. But he had a germ phobia similar to Howard Hughes. Tesla was obsessed with the number 3. So before entering a building, he would often feel the urge to walk around the block 3 times, or he might knock on the door 3 times. He would try to figure out if the amount of guests that he had in his home, because he did entertain a lot, was divisible by 3. And he always used 18 napkins. It would not eat alone in the company of a woman. He also developed a phobia of round objects, particularly women's earrings. So he had a lot of OCD tendencies. I don't want to run out of time, so let's keep going. Let's see. Gene, I think this is an assumed name, was a 30-year-old male case recorded by French psychiatrist Pierre Janet in his classic text, Obsessions and Psychopathy. His patient felt the need to constantly check his own heartbeat, and that he became anxious at the slightest irregularity. So here's a guy that constantly thought that if he didn't think his heart would stop beating. Despite his healthiness, he was unable to attend funerals or pass in front of his local town hall when announcements of deaths were taking place. So he sort of had, a combination of a death fear, and he was obsessed with his heartbeat. Jean also had an obsession with his own genitals, suffering great pain as a result. They don't explain that. Oh, he would spend days at a time rubbing ointments on the area. Well, maybe that was more than you wanted to know. Martin Luther. It is a little-known fact that the Protestant Reformation leader Martin Luther suffered from obsessions and repetitive patterns of thought. Luther described feelings of fleshly lust, wrath, hatred, or envy against any brother, which constantly vexed him. In other words, he had obsessions of hurting people that he cared about, and that's not an uncommon obsessional thought, that you're going to do bad to someone that you cared about. Let's see. And then there's Ernst Lancer, also known as the Rat Man, a patient who first came to Sigmund Freud in 1907. Ernst Lancer became a classic case for the founding father of psychoanalysis. Lancer's condition was marked by a number of obsessive thoughts, the most notable of which was an intense fear that a female friend, whom he eventually married, and his father would be tortured using a bizarre Chinese method involving a rat. Lancer also complained of other obsessive thoughts, such as cutting his own throat with a razor. So these are more along the lines of intrusive thoughts. Thomas Stonewall Jackson, one of the most brilliant commanders on either side of the American Civil War. This is the author speaking. I'm not a historian, so I don't know. Let's see. So what was his? He was considered appallingly bad, largely because of his petty, obsessive approach to discipline and his inability to communicate with his students. He was secretive and antisocial, rarely seeking out company. He had a habit of lifting the longer arm into the air to balance out his circulation. So, he had a combination of OCD and just a little bit of what we might call schizoaffective disorder as well. I mean, there was a lot going on there. And then Howard Hughes, I didn't see that movie, but I imagine some of you did. Let me just, anyone in the chat room here see the movie? Let's see what we're talking about here. Let's see. Did anyone see the movie? Looking here, just flipping through real quick. I'm sorry. Dead air is supposed to be a really bad thing. But it was a very, very famous, very, very famous OCD case. Okay, let's see. And his OCD made him insane. I mean, absolutely insane. Now, his OCD was based on germs. These symptoms included a morbid fear of germs and his early obsession with peas and sorting them by size. Can you imagine getting a serving of peas, and before you ate them, you would sort them by size? Although Hughes had suffered mood swings and obsessions as a younger man following his near-fatal plane crash in '46, the symptoms seemed to get worse, and that's not surprising. A knock to the head, which we call cerebral insult, can exacerbate a lot of psychiatric disorders. He refused to leave his screening room for months, living entirely on milk, chocolate, and chicken, and relieving himself in the empty containers. He gave orders for his aides not to speak to him unless he specifically asked him to. Towards the end of his life, Hughes' condition worsened, and the former womanizer began to shun all social contact. At the time of his death from kidney failure, his beard and fingernails had both grown out of control, mainly due to his aversion to being touched. It's kind of ironic that he had a fear of germs, and his fear of germs caused him to end up kind of disgusting. When you think of long fingernails that he wouldn't touch, they had to be dirty. He also suffered from malnutrition and reportedly had a body weight of just 90 pounds when he died. So, and there certainly is, and when you look at this list, I didn't read all of them to you, there is a correlation between intelligence and being a little bit crazy. And, here we have very famous people that all of them were, they were extremely bright people, and they had OCD. And other famous people, had, I'm thinking of, what was that? John Nash, the mathematician. What was that movie called? A Something Mind, A Beautiful Mind? I don't know. I forgot. But he had a severe case of schizophrenia. The movie shows visual, hallucinations, but that's because it's a movie. All of his hallucinations were actually auditory. Visual hallucinations are actually fairly rare. But, to wrap this up, the point is that people with OCD suffer. Their day is full of intrusive thoughts they can't control, compulsive behaviors that they believe are going to make the thoughts go away, and then the whole cycle starts over again. So as I said, it's kind of like a dog chasing its tail, only they never get a break. Some of these folks end up on disability because they can't leave their homes because they can never be convinced that they finished checking something. Or in the case of one woman I read, she would wash all the clothes in her house every day. She was married and had 2 kids. And when she was finished washing all the clothes, she would worry that she missed an item of clothing, so she would start over. So there were days that she might spend 12 plus hours just washing clothes, I assume till she fell asleep, got exhausted, or was forcibly prevented from doing so. Anyway, we are at the top of the hour, so it's time to say goodbye. Thank you to our callers. I really appreciate that. That was fun. And please stay tuned for more live radio at 9 p.m. With Pang Radio. And again, MJ and Ken have their guest, Adrian Lee and Lorna Hunter, and they'll be discussing their paranormal research and the Minnesota Paracon, which is coming up. So that's just in another hour. And next week we'll have a longer than usual show because we'll have Anthony Cummins, a real life pirate. I hope you folks have a good week. Smile as often as you can. Be happy. And I'll see you next Sunday. Take care. Bye.